Great. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, like before we start with the points that you have shared, I have few general questions as such, like just to understand what the project is all about and things. So, from your email and my conversation with Maria as well, like a month back, I think the you are already using a tool called uh, Kobo Toolbox, right? To collect the
That's correct.
data, and that is being done for the offline data collection from maybe India and some other countries.
Yep.
My one main point here is like, uh, as you're already doing a data collection, and I think I kind of went through the functionalities of Kobo Toolbox and all those things. So even they provide all these validations and calculations and all those things. So okay? So is there any specific reason you like looking for ProBench, or you're looking for specific help from ProBench in that sense? If I may get some idea there.
Yeah. So I think in terms of what we're looking for, we haven't been that impressed with functionality within Kobo.
Okay.
So that's why we're looking kind of elsewhere. Last year for the pilot, we did it manually ourselves,
Okay.
which for a pilot is fine. You know, we're trying to like test and figure out what we need to do. But this year, I think we'll have about 12,000, hopefully around 12,000 surveys completed in India.
Oh,
And, you know, I think even, you know, we're really hoping to scale it pretty quickly. So we're hoping to find kind of a data partner who can help us with checking of data, but also which we can, you know, if we set up the system to do it, you know, we can interact with it and do the checking. Also editing of the data set. So we found that, so in Kobo, for example, if they reported something, but it was out by a magnitude of 1,000 or something like that, we need to manually correct it. We
okay.
can't manually correct it in Kobo. So that's what made me think back to CFMB days of, you know,
Got it.
when we had to make changes to brand surveys, we could log in and make that change. And then we're really excited about having that kind of scorecard of the survey results. So
Right.
to do like the quantification, so we can say, you know, multiply this 100 kilos by this amount per kilo to total, you know, the GHG benefit. We can give you all that, but also to help the implementing partners with working with the farmers, because they can then log into the scorecard and say, you know, your crop burning was 30% of your impact. You don't actually need to burn your crops. You know, can we talk about what some of the other options are?
Got it.
We really want to kind of facilitate that and help that.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of so it's kind of a weird use case in a way. So I think we would have about, so 6 users who would be entering data. And then obviously we would love to be a user. So I think we probably have ultimately about 10 users.
That's okay. So
But
ProBench anyways does not matter how many users are there. What matters is
okay,
how many like individual like how many companies, or in your case how many farmers are participating in the survey. That
okay, okay, cool.
matters in a way, because those are the entities for which we are collecting data in a way. So
Sure.
how many number of users collect it doesn't matter in ProBench anyway. So it's absolutely fine with that. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool,
cool. So yeah,
cool.
I got my answer. So basically, from, just correct me if I'm wrong, what you will do going forward in case you like start working with us is like you will collect the offline data still from the Kobo toolbox, and then maybe transfer that data to ProBench. Okay, using maybe API or import like bulk import functionality that we have, and then you will do all the necessary validations and everything you want ProBench to do that, and maybe your partners or someone from Unlock would also be going in and making changes to the data wherever there are these discrepancies, and filling it for the, okay, great, fine, got it.
Exactly.
So this is what you exactly want, right? And at the end of the whole cycle, you want each of the farmers to receive a scorecard, and that scorecard should have certain areas where which would prompt them to kind of improve in whatever XYZ areas that you want them to improve.
Yeah, so
Right?
we would love to compare. So for the farmers, we'll have between 2 or 3 years of data. So we
Got
can
it.
compare them against themselves. So, you know, in a similar
Right.
way. So 2 years ago, you did this. Last year, you did this year, you did this. But also, it would be really interesting to do, you know, in Gujarat, was the average of the farmers who are
Got it. Got
participating,
it.
or
Got it.
average from India. So yeah, kind of having some of those extra layers would be really interesting.
And the
Just
list of farmers is something that you already have, right? So it's not that the like they are randomly kind of added or anything like that. That's not the
no,
case, right?
no, exactly right. So
Okay.
well, it's currently cotton planting season nearly. So we're enrolling all of them now. But probably in about a month, I would say, we'll have the full list of all their names and the unique code.
Right.
And then we use that unique identifier code just to make it easy
Got it. Perfect.
to
Yeah.
always link
Perfect. Yeah.
to the farm.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Uh, and like, if I may understand, what is this life cycle uh, like you are currently collecting or enrolling the farmers, okay, and
Yeah.
then you would start collecting the data for them, and then maybe once that initial data is collected, or maybe parallelly you may be also refining the data based on errors and all those validations and all those things, and then so what is the timeline that you normally have? Like, does this process complete in 6 months, 1 year, or like how does it normally, how much longer it takes as a cycle to
Yeah.
complete?
So it's typically an annual cycle.
Okay.
So we would enroll the farmers now, they grow the cotton, and then kind of December, January time, we start collecting their data.
Okay.
Um, that data collection, I mean, it'll take a couple months, really.
Yes, yes.
And then for new farmers, we'll also be collecting their baseline data. So data from last year or the year before. So it could be that we have that a bit sooner, but realistically, I would say like we would have the full data set probably in February, hopefully.
Okay.
And then, so I suppose that's a question for you guys. Is it better to wait until there's a complete data set for that bulk upload, or could we do it like on a weekly basis and say,
Right.
you know, here's 400 more, or what have you? Because the data checks all need to happen on the whole group of survey responses before I think we even want to get to the scorecard.
Yeah.
Just because it would be great if the scorecard is, again, drawing on like the averages of the entire group. So yeah, I think we're quite flexible in terms
Okay.
of that.
Got it.
But yeah, it would be, and again, we're like very happy to do those manual checks, but if we could set up some rules and things to say, you know, if this blows, you know, if something is reported that they added 1 kilogram of manure, then it flags it for us to check or things like that.
Got it. Got it.
That would
So,
just help us and
right.
streamline
So,
things.
so basically, you normally, like, obviously that was not the case because you were not having the system, but when it comes to your expectations, are you expecting like at the end of data collection or maybe in the middle, uh, you should have an Excel sheet which would flag all these things? Or do you want a front end tool where you would go to each of the farmers and that would give you an idea like all these questions have errors, and kind of you immediately do the necessary action steps to improve or to fix those errors, and then submit it for the final thing? So how do you envision this particular process to
Yeah.
happen? Yeah.
I mean, ideally, I think having it in the front end would be really interesting
Got it.
because it would be great if we could just empower those entering the data to just go in and see, oh, you know, there's a flag on these questions. I'll
Got it.
check it and maybe I can
Perfect.
edit it
Got it.
themselves. And that removes us having to get involved, really,
Got it.
which would scale a lot easier. If that's not possible, then let's definitely have a
No,
conversation
that's
about what
okay.
some.
I was mainly asking from a point of view like like there are 12,000 farmers. So will the data, like will your partners or someone from your team would go to all those 12,000 uh,
Yeah.
farmers to, like from a front end standpoint, and go and check? So
Yeah.
because that, on the numbers point of view, it seems a lot of work. So that's the
It
reason I
is.
was just asking, like, would they be
Yeah.
okay to go individually to those farmers and see it? However, we have both the ways. So, like, just trying to understand your expectations so that we know how we can, like, do this. So that's the reason I was asking. Fine.
No, that's
So,
great.
like, I think I have most of the answers here. So, thank you so much for giving that clarifications. So what I'll do now is, like, based on the emails and 5, 6 points that you have mentioned in your email, there are
Yeah.
few things that I can demonstrate you directly. Okay, and there are a few questions that I have on which I need further clarification from a functional standpoint. Okay, so I'll just take you through those areas then. Okay.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'll just share my screen now, if it's
Yep.
okay. Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
Okay. You're able to see my screen, right?
yes. Perfect.
Okay, great. So we'll first work on, or basically discuss on the quality checks and stuff. So we went through most of the examples that you provided in the Excel sheet, and we feel most of them are possible and available of what we can do. So I'll just demonstrate few of the things what we have done. So just allow me that. Uh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
Looks
like
very
there,
familiar.
yeah, yeah, you are quite familiar with this. There is a bit
Yeah.
of changes where these pop-up questions and all are a bit new because they have added
That's great.
more data points to the individual uptake data and all those things. But yeah, like
Yeah.
this is like one of the requirements where we uh, uh, like if a particular uh, data point is not correct, okay,
Yep.
or there needs to be a data, like you have given a value to, say, question A or question 1, but you have not given value to question B, or the question B is not up to your mark, that kind of a rule if you want to have, then we can have this kind of an uh, rule setup. Okay, so
Yep.
basically now, like, since like 2000, like I think 2020 2021, since you have used CFMB, okay, we have now introduced a rule engine within ProBench. Okay, so rule engine is basically for the exact purpose like you what you are looking for. So we would set some rules, okay, or some calculations, and
Yep.
those calculations will be happening based on whatever rules that we set. Okay, so here we have set a rule saying, like, in this particular table, the total portfolio field should not be incalculable. That's the rule that we
Yep.
have set in the background. Okay,
Yep.
and if that does not satisfy, or for from a validation standpoint, then error like this would come up, and it would give you the error message that you want to show on the top. Like, for this
Great.
reason, this is the red bar, so you fix it. Okay, otherwise, like, it would, like, if you see on the overview page which was there, it would show you as invalid answer. So it's kind of a
That's
flag
perfect.
for you. So wherever you see on whatever page you see there is an invalid answer, you can go there, and when you go onto that particular page, you will see multiple error messages on the top, and when you click on that error message, would take you to that particular error message, and you fix it based on whatever rules that you have. Okay, so
Yep.
this is a kind of a rule where something is expected, but it is not as expected, kind of rule that I'm just demonstrating here.
Yep.
Similarly, you can also have, you can also have rules for dates, date and time. I think that was also one of the requirements. So the valid date. So whatever date you have entered, it should be between X and Y, whatever those two date ranges that you might give. So here we have this date, month, and year as a separate field. So uh, so that kind of a validation is possible in this if you have a separate fields for date, month, and time. And you can also have this kind of validations for say there is only one field and you have the whole date mentioned. So
Yeah.
all those two types are there. So even like lesser than or equal to an end date, whatever date you specify. So all those kind of rules are also possible. So I'm just demonstrating you
Yeah.
different areas that you have suggested.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's perfect.
yeah. Then there was like uh, there was one, I think one of the points that you mentioned where there were like year on year changes. Okay, so if there are if a particular in a particular year there was X and the difference between the 2 years is larger than what you expect, the range is larger, then so in that case what we can do is like we do not have such validation that I can show you, but from what I imagine and what I know we can do is like we can have a table like this. We can have like their previous year's data also pre-populated from their previous year, so you don't have to do that. And that pre-population can be done from the previous year, and based on the data that is pre-populated we can kind of compare the maybe 3 years back data and the current data, or maybe previous year's data and the current data, and then kind of show the validation. So
Yeah.
we can create a table like this, and uh, uh, there like it can be displayed in the front end, and the validation can happen from a year on year point of view as well here. So
That's
so this
great.
is something that is possible. So I was just showing you that. uh, okay, now next comes the calculation area. Okay, so
Yeah.
you already know like we do calculations in ProBench, so there's nothing much to kind of explain there. But yeah, all these calculations like we are like pretty uh, like whatever changes that we do, it would kind of impact. And finally, whatever scores or whatever that comes up, it would automatically change. We have the total as well for each of the columns, and the numbers can change as well. So all that calculations we have done quite some complex calculations for textile exchange. So you are already aware of that. So we can do all those calculations. Obviously, there might be some things that we might not able to calculate, but we'll have to see the formulas that you provide us, and based on that we might be able to 100% tell you whether something is possible or not. But
Yeah.
any mathematical calculations, I don't see a reason why we cannot do it. Okay,
Yeah.
so from that standpoint we are quite confident on that.
Yeah.
uh,
Perfect.
Right. So this is also another like I just wanted to display 29, 2020. So these are all like pre-populated from the previous year's data for CFMB, and then we keep on entering the current year data. So that's how. So I think when you were there, we were not pre-populating this previous year's data. Now we have that default setting. So we have that
That's great.
additional functionality. So once it is set in default, it takes from whatever year you mention and it pre-populates it. And that pre-population can also be editable or non-editable. So if you
Right.
want to change for whatever reasons you want to change their previous year data because it was not proper at that point. So instead of going to their previous year survey and kind of messing up the all the averages and everything, you can just for the future records, you can just make a change in this year for that
Okay.
particular previous year field, and then maybe uh, keep on using that for the previous later years. So that is
Right.
yeah, so that's how it is. So now there is one more thing.
Yeah.
There was let me take you to that point. So there was this yeah. So here you mentioned like this, there's also a question here in a way, but yeah, it's related. So there you have mentioned where typically typical patterns are noted in a specific state or region, compare the averages to the reported data for each of the fields. And after identifying, so what you are trying to say here is like the averages have to be calculated on the go, is what you are trying to say here? Like what kind of patterns?
Sure. So I would say, so this would be like, so if a state is primarily rain fed, so they don't use additional irrigation, but the farmer has reported that there's lots of irrigation or something like that,
Okay,
we would just flag it and just say, this is like an unexpected response
okay,
based upon, XYZ. So we can
Eh,
give you like the list of rules
right.
um,
So,
of the
but
typical patterns.
yeah,
Yeah.
so my sorry to interrupt. So my question actually was related in a way like when you say that it should flag. So in this particular case, because I think there was some uh, yeah, we felt that you just wanted to alert them and not stop them from like progressing. So is that the case? Like it should be an error or it should be just an alert? So because there is a difference, because if there is an error, then it would not let the submission to happen. And if it
Yeah.
is just an alert, so it is just for their notice standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's definitely more of an alert.
Okay.
So it would just be like, can you just double check that this is correct,
Got it.
basically?
Okay.
Rather than say, it has to be rain fed if you're in this specific state. We wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Got it. So like like the way we handle those alerts is like all the previous examples that I mentioned were
yeah.
actually errors. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it would not allow the user to move forward. I mean, when I say move forward, it would not allow user to kind of submit the survey final submission, and it would on the
Yeah.
submission page it would show errors like there are these invalid pages. Please fix it. Unless
Yeah.
you fix it, you will not be able to submit. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the error. And now when I
Yeah.
talk about alert, it would be something like it would not be flagged somewhere on the overview page. Okay, but the alert would be more from just when you visit that particular page or do some action,
Yeah.
then it would kind of give this kind of an alert, like
Yeah.
maximum response has been reached or something like that. So uh, there yeah, so this is what we have from an alert standpoint. Otherwise, most of the other things are like kind of an error. So unless
Okay.
you fix it, you won't be able to move forward. So
Yeah.
this is something that we'll have to check when it comes to the uh, what I may say user friendliness of it, because I'm not sure like you'll do any action to get the alert.
Yeah.
Okay, it should be by default. So this is something that we'll have to check if we can improve on, or we can just provide just an highlight, but do not treat it as an error. That is something that we'll have to check, or maybe if it's not there we might have to develop as well. But yeah, this is a bit of a gray area that we are not 100% sure of at this particular point.
That's it's not a priority area for us. So
Okay.
if it's not possible, that's fine. I think as you kind of said, because we'll do the bulk upload or the API, they won't be like entering the survey question by question within ProBench. So they may not see the
Yes.
alerts rather than the
Yeah.
errors. So maybe, for this year, for example, we can just only flag where there should be errors.
Right.
And then we can explore.
Right. So yeah, we can
Yeah.
improve on the functionalities at a later date. So not everything, if not possible, we can like prioritize things and then take it forward. So yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Sounds great.
All right. Next question I think I have here. Yeah. So in this particular thing, the check the input has been reported with expected measurement approaches, and you have mentioned that expected fertilizer to be reported by weight, but is
Yeah.
reported by liquid. So, from what I understand, like instead of say they mention in kg, they would be mentioning maybe metric tons, or maybe like cubic meter or something, some other units. Now, when it comes to your data collection process, this kind of data, like does the uh, does your colleagues enter it like say 63 kg in one single field, or is there a separate field for selecting units and
Yeah,
a separate field for number?
there's exactly right. So in Kobo currently, they would enter a number and then they would enter the units
Okay,
in
so
two
they are two
fields.
different fields. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
great. So that's perfect. So that's how
yeah,
we would love to be.
right.
So yeah, great.
And again, it's not a major priority. It's more for like pesticides or like
Yeah, yeah,
fertilizers where it's a solid, but they'll put it in liquid before they
right.
spread it. Sometimes we had it reported as a liquid, but then it for our impact calculations, it gets pretty
Yes, yes, yes.
complicated.
Got it. Perfect. No,
Yeah,
like because like the complexity is added when you enter both of them together. Like because
yes,
the number and kg, so we have to kind of identify from that particular field where what unit they have added. Instead of if they have two separate fields, then obviously it is much easier to identify and add calculations. So obviously, or not calculations but validations. So obviously that helps. Perfect. So that is the question. Now, I have two questions here. So we were not able to completely understand the requirement for these two.
yeah,
Okay. So if you can just throw some light on these two requirements, like check reported activities against known data of the farmers. So rain-fed farmers reporting irrigation events should
yeah,
be clarified via clarification log.
yeah.
So yeah, if you can throw some, what do you mean by clarification log, and what are the events that you're talking about here? So,
Uh, so um,
should
so
I
in the
increase
pilot,
my size, like screen size, maybe?
no, it's okay. It's all right. Um, so we used in the pilot a clarification log where if we identified any kind of questions in our data checks, we would list them in a clarification log, and then we would ask whoever entered the data to check it. Obviously, doing that is very manual, so we're trying to get away from it. So hopefully, using a solution like Provench and having the errors pop up will save us from having to do
Okay, so
that.
it's basically a normal validation that you're looking for, right? So nothing
Yeah,
different that you're looking for to maintain some
no,
log or anything like that.
exactly right. So it
Okay,
would be so basically in like maybe we have like a first sheet of like farmer name, farmer code, and then if we had the information, rain fed or irrigated farmer. So if we had that, we could just set up a rule to say,
yeah,
if this
absolutely.
doesn't match, show an error.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's very similar to what we discussed. And then
Okay,
the
and
second one,
yeah,
causality date. Yes,
could you,
exactly. So
yeah,
I can show you more. So as I mentioned, I mean, all the farmers are like preparing the fields now and starting to think about planting the cotton. And for our program, to claim the climate benefit or the GHG benefit associated with the practices, we have to have something called like causality, or we have to have some evidence or proof that the farmer is involved in the program and they've agreed to it. And that's why they're going to change how they do their farming to derive some of the benefits. We're trying to get all those contracts sorted ASAP, but for some of the farmers, they will have already started, plowing their fields and things like that before we have the contract in place. So what that means is for the data calculations of the impacts, we can't include that plowing just yet. So even if this year, they use 20% less fuel for plowing, we can't use that in the calculation because we didn't have the evidence.
yeah.
So in that kind of user information summary of like their name, their location, their code, we'll also have a field for causality date. So it'll be, for example, if it was today, May 15th, the farmer signed the contract, but they did plowing on May 1st, we would know that we would exclude that from the analysis.
Okay.
So hopefully that's an okay rule to include for when we look at more the quantification and the scorecard side of things.
Sure.
Um, But for the data collection itself, I mean, we'll still collect data on their plowing, even if we have, the causality date. So, so
So
that's
this
not a
would be
problem.
more of an alert than an error, if I may understand, like if I'm understanding correctly.
Um, I don't think we even need to have it as
Okay,
an alert or an
nothing.
error.
So
It's more just for the calculations later.
got it.
We would just need the system to ensure that it doesn't include anything that happened before the causality date.
Okay, okay,
Um,
fine, fine. So more from a scorecard and calculation standpoint, from a data analysis point of view.
exactly right.
Okay,
And so in COBA, we don't have the causality date in it. So that is something where we would love to send it to you in whatever format is best for you.
okay.
But it would literally just be like the specific code and then a date. If we could upload that
Sure, sure,
somehow.
sure. I think we can. Yeah,
Um,
I think we should.
is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The only other data point that would be like that is the final production quantity. So a lot of times we can collect data on, everything they've done to grow the cotton, but because the cotton is, sold to the gin multiple times, and sometimes it's stored at the home, for a while, we sometimes don't have that final quantity of cotton until, maybe February time, for
Hmm.
example, maybe even March. So it's something where if we could upload that later somehow,
Yeah,
that
that's
would
okay. That
help.
should be fine. That shouldn't be a major concern there. So
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
perfect.
That sounds great.
Okay. Uh, and I think quantification of impacts, I think we can I think that's part of your email, so we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. Uh, so yeah, coming back to the email, so I think most of the things that you have mentioned in the quality checks are doable. So looking at it does not seem complex. Uh,
Great.
uh, like establish a system to identify any red flags as identified through the quality automated quality checks. So is this again from a front end standpoint, or are you looking for any Excel sheet or anything like that?
Yep. Exactly
Just front
right.
end.
So from that front end, so ProBench says you have an error, you need to
Yeah,
correct it.
got it.
I think that's perfect. I don't know, do you have any system where like whoever entered the data is notified that there's errors and they need to correct it, or do they have to go into each survey to check it to
I
see?
think they'll have to go to each of the survey to check in. So we
Yeah.
do not have
Okay.
that as yet, to be frank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, cool.
Okay. Uh, Fine.
Yeah.
That's a good food for thought, actually. Just
Yeah, no
uh,
worries. If there is a way, that would be amazing.
yeah.
But
So
yeah.
yeah. So just thinking from a developer standpoint, so what can be done? But it's okay. Like we'll think on that at a later stage. So yeah.
Or
Uh,
even if there's a way to generate a report to say, here's all the surveys and here's where it's all able to be submitted or where there's errors, even something like that.
yeah. Uh,
Because then we could segment it for each user and say, have a look at these ones.
I think that should be like with some development, we should be able to do it because all these errors are anyway stored in a separate uh, table when it comes to like the backend. So
Yep.
I wouldn't think it would be too difficult to get that kind of a report, like after the
Okay.
data upload or something. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely think on that particular lines. So that's what I was thinking when you actually mentioned
Yeah.
can we show that these are companies with errors? So yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
think on that lines for sure.
Perfect.
Uh,
Perfect.
Cool. Now coming to the data imports. Okay, so
Yep.
I think one of your question was whether we have an API connection. So answer to that is no, because we do not have any API connection with any other data collection systems. But we do have bulk import functionality. So whatever data that you give, we can import bulk into our system. Obviously,
Great.
there will be some like transformations that we might have to do. So,
Yep.
like if you remember the data that you have sent across that you received from Kobo, so if I tell you what in what way we would need the data. So we just kind of imported all the data from Kobo to our system, like whatever you provided. So
Yep.
I think we understood most of it. So the only
Okay.
difference that I see in your format and our format is like your format have only this ones, okay, as the column
Yep.
headings, okay. But what we would need when it comes to ProBench is like we would also need these node IDs, okay. And that
Okay.
those node IDs are basically like when those uh, fields are created in ProBench, because whatever survey or questionnaire that you have created in Kobo will also have to be created in ProBench, right? Unless that is done, you won't be able to make modifications or make changes and still retain the data, right? So when
Yep.
we do that, we also kind of when we do this import uh, process, we create a template in our system, okay, and then
Yep.
we kind of create a download format, and then whatever format that we get from you will be kind of transposed or kind of copied, because even with us, like in your case, we would also have one column, one farmer kind of a thing. Sorry, one row, one farmer kind of a thing. So
Yep.
in the data that you provided as well, it was one row, one farmer, and 1 year, right? So
Yep.
obviously, when you give us the data, you'll have to give us like uh, yearly data. So each one Excel sheet for 1 year, another Excel sheet for another year. That's how you'll have to provide us with the data, and that is only for the initial imports. But
Okay.
after that, whatever imports that you do would be like, because it would be only for that current year, it would be for that year. So from that standpoint, also we kind of collect or store the data in the column wise. Even Kobo toolbox has column wise data. So does not seem to be a major difference in what Kobo gives us and the way we store the data. So it should be
Yep.
pretty, I won't say it would be 100% straightforward and there would be no work to be needed, but it can be done with a process set, or maybe like
Yep.
if time permits, and if the frequency of imports that you want is like every week or every 2 weeks or something, then we might
Yep.
have to work on some automation or automated scripts using which
Yep.
all this process, like you upload something and import is done. So we might have to develop that, but that depends on how you want or what frequency you want this data to be imported. So obviously, like as you just asked that question in our previous conversation, is like how frequently you can upload the data. So after so there we can kind of set a thing like every 15 days, every 1 month. So obviously, initially there will be a need of our developers to be part of that particular process, okay,
Yep.
because this is the first time you might be doing, before we understand the exact way we would be receiving data and the transformation will be done. So
Yep.
that clarification will take some time to come, and then before we my personal recommendation would be to go with manual approach for the first year, okay,
Yep.
uh, so that we transform it manually. And then once everything is happening as expected, uh, when it comes to the complete cycle and whatever you want is kind of you are able to do perfectly in ProBench, only then try to invest anything more when it
Yep.
comes to time and money, both of them. So unless you are
Yep.
100% sure that ProBench is the tool to go with for the future years as well, I would recommend to not spend too much time, like at least development efforts or money, and
Yep.
work with whatever is already there. It would be my personal recommendation here. Okay. So
Yep.
from that standpoint, I think import can be done. It is not direct import, but yeah, the transformation is doable and possible with some efforts. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds great. Perfect.
cool. Now, coming to this quantification of impact, here you have mentioned that Unlock would provide 73-bit all the calculations, emission factors to enable calculation. So this is from a survey setup and questionnaire setup standpoint. So we can do all the calculations and all those things. Even if you want calculations to be after the survey, even those calculations can be done. So that's not an issue. Uh,
Perfect.
and the second point that you have mentioned is while we would not require dynamic drilling down and across of this data set, it would be helpful if we can already identify different views on the data. So this is something that I would like to clearly understand because I'm not 100% sure what is the expectations here. So if you
Yep.
can throw some light there.
Sure, no worries. So we have the 12,000 farmers,
Yeah,
right? We need to know. So I think the scorecard, we would love it to be farmer specific, right?
right,
So
right, right.
farmer ABC, here is their impacts. We would then love to have, an understanding of what the impacts are for Gujarat, for example, or what are the impacts for this one implementing partner or user. So I don't know if that's different scorecards, or I think we're open to it. It can be like
But
even just like a report that's generated.
right.
Um,
But
or
when you
but I
talk
think
about impacts, what is impacts? Like, is there a set of rules based on what you mention it as impacts, or how you want the system to identify the impacts? Is what I'm trying to
so
understand.
sorry.
Yeah,
So it's the greenhouse gas impacts of whatever they do. So for example, for irrigation, they use this much energy. We'll say, here's our emissions factor, and then you just multiply it across, and then we have the impacts
yeah. Okay.
of irrigation, or for example,
So there
or
is an output of a calculation in a way, right?
exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay. Okay.
And it's for the most part, it's pretty simple mathematical multiplication.
Got it.
Um, there's a couple where we'll take two inputs. So they used a 5 horsepower pump for 20 hours, and then we can multiply. So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
two
yeah.
multiplications in
That's
one,
okay.
but
That's okay. Yeah.
it's just basic multiplication and then ways basically how we can aggregate it or summarize it. That's all this is saying. But our first point of call is definitely that farmer level scorecard. That's really important. But we would love a way to understand, what that means when we say for all the farmers or for farmers in one state or things like that.
Got it.
It's just
So
those
yeah,
different views.
I think we can definitely uh, uh, I think we can achieve this. Like if like, but however, like to be 100% sure what like if this can be done or not, is there a
Yep.
possibility of sharing any examples with us? Maybe a visual example or maybe whatever
Um,
you might be able to share for this area to
yeah.
confirm whether we can do that particular thing looking at it because we are able to do averages at a state level and at a partner level and all those things like all
Yep.
the statistical calculations we can definitely do out of Provence, so that's not an issue. But I'm just wanted to be 100% sure if I understand what you exactly want here. But looking at it, we feel that we can do it, but yeah, I just want to be sure before I commit anything.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah,
It would basically be so again within that like farmer information area.
right.
So we'd have their name, we'd have their location. So like what state they're in, what district they're in,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
example, and then which local partner is working with them. And then it would be great to say, okay, for all the surveys we've received for one local partner, which could be up to 5,000 farmers, we'd love to know kind of the total impacts. So just adding, all
Okay.
those irrigation
Adding all of,
benefits, and then
okay,
what's the total irrigation, and then maybe what's the average for their
okay.
cohort.
I think we can
Um,
do that. That's not an issue.
I think, yeah, it really, I'm pretty sure it's in line with
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you
okay.
guys are doing, to be honest.
Okay, cool, cool.
But if you want, I can create some mock-ups,
Yeah,
if
maybe
that's helpful.
like if
Yeah,
that helps, like if does not take too much of your time. If you can just share something, that would be really helpful. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool.
cool.
I'll definitely do that this week and I'll send it to
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
That's not a
absolutely, no
problem.
problem. Yeah. Then it would be great. Yeah. So each farmer level, I think you already have seen some of our scorecards, but yeah, I'll just demonstrate some of them, like because now we have these digital scorecards as well. So I
Cool.
think in 2020, so like before we go to the scorecards, my one of the main important question was like when it comes to farmers and what scorecards that you create,
Yeah.
what is the format that you're looking for? Are you looking for a PDF format of the scorecards, or are you looking for a digital format of a scorecard that they can view on their mobile phones, like obviously smartphones, but
Yeah.
uh, uh,
That would be amazing if that is possible.
okay.
I will say, so because I mean, it's quite a complex project in a way. So the people who are entering the data may or may not be the people who are on field with the farmer.
Hmm.
Um, and probably they won't be. If you were going to guess, I would say
Yeah,
they
yeah,
won't
yeah.
be. So I mean, maybe the PDF is fine, because obviously you can view the PDF on a smartphone. Um, and I think that would probably actually be simpler because otherwise they would need to log into ProBench to view the digital
No,
version,
so
right?
there's digital scorecards can be like without login as well. So
Ah, they
that's,
can.
yeah, yeah, they
Okay.
can be without logins. So if you can, whatever URL that you see on the
Ah.
top, you can just like if you share that URL, they would be able to open it on their smartphones. So yeah,
Oh,
but
that's really good.
provided they have a smartphone, that would be a
Yes.
caveat there. So that is something that
Yeah.
you might have to consider. So yeah,
Yeah, I know that our so those who go on the field do have them. Obviously some of our farmers don't, or they do
yeah,
within the
yeah,
family, but they may not
yeah,
have it
yeah,
every
yeah.
day. But I think the field teams definitely will have that. So that is really interesting. Okay,
Sure,
cool.
perfect. So like, and the scorecards that you're looking for is like one pager scorecard like this one, like there will be one page and you will have all the
Yeah,
information on that particular thing.
exactly
Okay.
right.
So yeah,
Exactly.
that should be perfectly. So there can
Yeah,
even be like a save as PDF kind of a icon on the top where they can kind of save this as a PDF and then maybe print it out or something. So
that'd be
so
great.
in that case, I think digital scorecard can do well as well. So yeah, these
Yeah,
are few of the examples I'm sharing with you. So
yeah,
uh, so these are all the
really
charts
great.
and graphs and all those things in case uh,
Yeah.
you want to show yearly progress and all those things. So
Yeah, I think it's definitely an opportunity to show the farmers, the benefits of what they've done,
yeah,
and then where there might be some other opportunities. So yeah, I think all of this looks really, really lovely and is
perfect.
very clear. So
Great. So what we can do, so when it comes to scorecards, like because we are purely a technical team, we do not have a design team. So maybe the
yeah,
design of the scorecards might have to be provided by you. Uh,
okay,
if we go forward with the whole process.
yeah,
So, and then we incorporate it into our system and we just change the data that needs to be dynamic and
yeah,
whatever charts and graphs that you, and so we have about 7 types of charts that we normally support in the digital scorecard. So we
yeah.
can use those charts and show the data that you might want to show. So yeah,
That's
and
perfect.
like doing it
It'll
like
be quite
creating scorecard.
simple.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be. Yeah, yeah,
it's we don't want to make it too complicated because otherwise
yeah.
it won't really be used if it's too hard to
Right,
understand.
right, right.
So I think a couple of bar charts and we're probably there, to be
Perfect.
honest.
So maybe what you can do if you do not want to invest in the designs as well, you initially just let us know what data that you want to show. Okay. And if we have any templates that we can reuse from
Yeah,
our things, then maybe we can just reuse those templates, change the maybe the branding and things, the colors and things, and we can use the same thing. So that
okay.
even that option is available. So it's like if you want to keep it simple, that is what
Yeah.
you can go with in that case.
I think that sounds great. We definitely love to explore that. That sounds
Perfect.
perfect.
All right. Sure. So I think like initially when this idea was shared by Maria and sorry, don't remember your other colleague's name, but
Layla.
yeah,
Yeah,
Leila.
don't
Yeah.
worry.
So yeah, sorry for that. So looking at that, we were a bit confused of what is the type of validations and or you would need. But looking and we kind of proposed them conducting a workshop like and like for a week or two to identify whether this can be done or not. But looking at the data that you have provided and the Excel sheet or the expectations of validations that you have provided, I think we are pretty much comfortable that at least 80 to 90% is something that we can do out of the box. We do not will
That's
not
great.
have to do much development or anything like that. So
Yes.
I think that is fine. And the next step, according to me, would be I will be sending you across a proposal, a cost proposal.
Great.
Okay, like with our license fee, considering there will be like about 10,000 farmers. Okay,
Yeah. I'm a bit
and
worried about
yeah,
that.
so we'll provide you the cost proposals, and then the other fixed cost like maybe like the setup cost to be a one-time cost
Yep.
that it would take, like creating the questionnaire, importing the data. Maybe there will be creation of data sets with all the calculations, creation of scorecard. So I'll give you ballpark estimates of each one of them. Okay, and
Great.
then maybe we can take this forward. You can discuss this further. You can make your internal decisions. But if this needs to be done sometime like uh, you want this to be ready by say September, October, I think we should be comfortable doing that. So
Yeah.
that
I think,
shouldn't be an issue.
yeah, to be honest, I mean, I would love for this to be an option for those who want to enter data in on a computer. I
Yeah,
think we're looking at Kobo for the offline, capabilities, but I think ProBench is, yeah, quite a lot nicer to interact with than
yeah,
Kobo, to be honest. Um, but for this year, I would think that, we would have probably until Q1 next year,
okay,
until we would need to, do that bulk upload and things like that. So I don't think we have a time crunch by any means, which is nice. So we can
yeah,
really say, okay, what
absolutely.
is important for now? What could we leave for a year, um, and kind of discuss that further. But
Perfect.
no,
And since you have time, like
yeah,
just in case, like if you want to decide to kind of try out with a small amount of data and
oh, yeah,
small amount of fields, even we can have that small workshop maybe, if not a
okay,
full-fledged kind of investigative workshop, but maybe a trial kind of a thing for small data set and run the whole cycle.
okay,
If you want to be 100% sure if this fits your requirement, even we can have that kind of an arrangement and see if we can run those workshops maybe for a couple of weeks or something. So even that
okay.
is possible because like if you are investing so much, okay, rather invest a bit at the start, be 100% sure this works as per your expectations, and then maybe go forward with a full-fledged implementation. So
Cool.
I'll put that into my email as well. So in case you want to make any decisions on that as well, that would be
Perfect.
helpful for you. All right.
That sounds great. And
Perfect.
so
Yeah.
and so Layla will obviously be part of that decision-making process, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she's
Absolutely.
she's out for her wedding. So she will be
Oh.
back at the beginning of June. So there's
Oh.
no rush
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
either.
Fine. Fine. Yeah.
It's
So
all good.
absolutely by start of June, first week of June, I'll be providing you. So because I like to be frank, I have most of the data that I want, except for I think one thing like the mock-up that you are going to give me.
Yeah.
Maybe like whenever I get that, that would be the final thing that I would be looking at. Other
Yeah.
than that, I'm pretty much okay. And if at all it is possible to provide any sort of like access to the questionnaire on the Kobo toolbox, or maybe like if you have a printable version of that questionnaire, that would be really helpful just to understand the size of it and
Yeah.
the complexity from a questionnaire standpoint. So
Yeah, I
if
can
you can
send
provide, yeah,
you a link and feel free
perfect.
to do a submission if you want. We can always delete it.
Okay, great. Fine. So that would be helpful because like this was interesting. So I was like looking at what this Kobo toolbox also has. So I was like from a
Yeah,
learning standpoint also it would help me because the user friendliness and all those things might be different in different tools. So there would
yeah,
always be something that we can learn as well. So yeah, no problem.
that sounds perfect.
Perfect.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Steph, for all the help and supporting us with this and reaching out to us after a long time.
Of
Happy to help
course.
in whatever way possible. Yeah,
Yeah, and thank you for all your time and looking into it. I'm really
no
excited to
problem.
receive the proposal and yeah, it's
Perfect.
good. Thanks.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye bye. Take care. Have a good week.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.